it was the most demoralizing experience. Like, it really shattered my confidence. I remember getting called in with my boss one day of them being like, if you don't fix this, like, this isn't going to work. So now I have this, like, being threatened to be fired, like, laying over my head, where I'm like, I don't even know. I'm good at my job. Like, what is happening here?
I'm just playing with them now, yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I've been wanting to do this video for so long, and I was like, you know what? Let's dive into it today. Let's talk about my career lore. It runs deep. There is so much. As I kind of dive into YouTube, I figure that there's new listeners and new people who don't know me as well. And I'm like, you know what? I need to kind of explain things from the beginning and in detail. And I don't know if I've ever done it in such like crazy detail, and I will make it quick. I'm just going to give you like the 411. I am going to name drop because I kind of have to paint the picture. So I just want to get into everything. The way I always like to start is just explaining a little bit about me as a child and a student, because I think it really defines who I am as a business person and who I was entering corporate and entering just the workforce. I basically was such a bad student. I got C's, D's, sometimes F's my entire life. I never really felt like school was something that, I don't know, worked well for me in terms of the formatting of it. I always have said that I think I would have done much better at like a vocational school where I'm doing cosmetology, I'm like building cars, whatever it is. I'm better with my hands. I'm a visual learner. I had not a care in the world for school. I never did homework. I would do it in homeroom 5 seconds before handing it in, copy the kid next to me. Like nothing my parents did could have made me care. Truly. So much so that they put me in Huntington Learning Center. They were like getting me tutors. They were like, girl, you got to get your grades up. And I was just like, I'm going to flirt. Like, I could not be bothered. So it's interesting because, you know, as an adult now, I realize how school really only caters to like one type of learner. And it makes a lot of sense. And I've actually found a lot of comfort in listening to entrepreneur interviews when I realize how many successful entrepreneurs actually dropped out of college or dropped out of school. And I think that's kind of helped affirm me as I've gotten older, because for years I spent so much time thinking I wasn't smart. I remember even family, grandmas, like people would just make jokes like, oh, well, we know Alyssa's not a good student. We know Alyssa's like the dumb one. They wouldn't say that, but that's how I received it. For the first time ever in my life, I could be like, no, I'm smart and I could stand on business. And I will tell you why I think that now. After having like a 2.1 GPA in high school, like I'm talking, I think I was in like the lowest 30 people of my grade. Like my GPA was so low. It came time to apply to college, and I went to a very academic high school. A lot of people really prided themselves on going away to college. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to get in anywhere. Like the idea of going to community college when all of my friends were going away to these amazing universities felt really embarrassing for me. And again, not saying this is right or wrong. This is just how my life experience felt at the time. I applied to 25 schools or something. And I remember I would hear back from like University of West Virginia, which was apparently like the school everyone and their mother got into. And they were like, you're not going to get into the main campus, but you can go to our satellite campus. Then I heard back from another school and it was like, you can come, but you could defer a year or whatever. It's like I kept getting these like rejections. And then for whatever reason, I saw Sacred Heart University on Facebook at the time. Girl went there. Her pictures were cool. The people were great. I was like, ooh, what's this? I went and toured it with my parents, and before I ever knew I was a publicist, became a publicist. Like I would pitch them night and day. I found out that they were one of the schools that was allowing in-person interviews, which not every school allowed. So I was like, okay, I could lead with my personality if I could just get through the doors. So I got through the doors for an interview. The man was Italian. I played into that. I was like talkative and communicative, and I let him know, hey, look, yeah, I'm not a great student, but I did pretty well on my SATs, and it's not a sign of my intelligence. It's truly just I haven't found the right fit for me, but like this school is perfect for me. And let me tell you why. And I just pitched and pitched and pitched. And at the end of that interview with that man, he was like, honey, don't worry, I'll put in a good word. But that wasn't good enough for me. So what did I do? I found the head of admissions email on their website, and I emailed her once every few weeks for the next few months with the same spiel. I probably had typos in my emails. I was like a high school kid, just being like, hey, remember her name was Melissa. I'd be like, hi, Melissa. It's Alyssa again, just checking in, hoping I could get into Sacred Heart next year. I really want to go there. It's my number one. Please know that my grades aren't a reflection of how I am as a person. If you give me a shot, I will prove myself, blah, 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 blah. Turns out one day, I remember I was going to Italy with my family because my sister was studying abroad. So I was like, we leave for Italy tomorrow. And I just want to know if I got in. It was around the time when everyone was hearing back from colleges. So I made a phone call. I literally called her, guys. What high school student is calling head of his admissions? I don't know. I've never heard it personally. I called her. I'm like, hi, Melissa. It's Alyssa. And I remember her saying, she was like, Alyssa, you could stop calling. Your acceptance offer goes out this week. And I just burst into tears. And I think that was the first big chance someone or someplace took on me in my life. And it's the first of many. And I tell that backup story leading up to my career journey because it paved the way for so many things. It showed me who I was as a person, the kind of drive that I had, the skills that I had. And obviously it comes with privilege. And I was lucky and I was fortunate and things aligned. I really think that going to college for me was one of the best things I could have done for my career. I know a lot of people feel like they don't learn a lot in college. For me, and I don't believe that you have to go to college. I want to be frank. I don't think I learned that many textbook things from there, but what I did learn was life skills. I learned how to live away from my parents. I learned how to make friends on my own. I learned how to hold myself accountable because my parents were very clear. If you do not get a 3.0 or above, we're pulling you out. We are not paying this tuition for you to go here to do what you did in high school. So it kept me accountable. It kept me aligned. It really helped me explore what I was good at. I was never forced into a specific major. My parents were like, whatever you want to do. I went into media studies, communications with a minor in fashion marketing. I loved what I did. And I learned that when I was studying what I loved, I was good at it. And that is where my confidence started to build, where I was like, I am smart. I really am. I could do this. And I will never forget, I took my first creative writing elective. We had to take it. It was a prerequisite freshman year. And I never thought I could write. I never thought I was a strong writer. And I remember just falling in love with writing in that class and being like, wow, I'm a writer. I could do this. And I fell in love with writing. Soon after, I fell in love with marketing and it snowballed. I just knew that that meant I needed to steer more away from graphic design, which I thought maybe originally, and more into the marketing PR side of things. And at the time, I had an older sister who had internships in New York City. It's very uncommon for, I think, a freshman in college to get an internship. But in my head, I was like, grades aren't enough because I don't have great grades. So I need to earn it. I need to earn my way into a job. So I started interning the summer going into sophomore year. Then again, the summer going into junior year, then senior year, then every winter, then once a semester. I had 8 internships to 9 internships by the time I graduated college at some of my dream places that I did not have connections to. I think a big misunderstanding is that you need a connection. I don't believe that. I think with persistence, like I did with admissions, a little bit of luck, some privilege, all of these things, I think it will get you in the door. I would contact the CEOs of the companies. And I think a lot of people, I remember having friends at the times being like, ooh, I don't know if you should reach out to that person. And my mindset is, as now a business owner, I respect when people go out on a limb. And if they are the same way, they will too. And I always went out on a limb. So my first internship was at a fashion showroom. I learned a lot there. That was the first time that I remember I tweeted something. Twitter was big, being like, ugh, my internship place ran out of toilet paper. Honestly, not a big deal. They screamed my head off. They were like, how dare you? Who do you think you are? They wouldn't look at me the rest of the internship. Necessary lesson though. Necessary lesson. Did I ever tweet anything again about my workplace? Absolutely not. I've been humbled my whole life, by the way. That's another big lesson you will learn here. I am always just getting knocked down and humbled. Then the next summer, I got an internship at Elle magazine. Did I have a connection to get that job? I actually think, ironically, I got it on my own. And then I knew someone that was working there. And then they put in a good word after I think I had already broken through on my own. But don't hold me to that. And I was supposed to work in the fashion closet, which is just literally what it's called, a closet in the fashion section with no windows, and you just ship things out all day. And luckily for me, all of those internships were full. So they were like, you want to work for the creative director? And I'm like, hell yeah. So I started working for Josie at the time, which was the creative director of Elle magazine. That was incredible. I'm still friends with some of the people I met there now. Then from there, the next summer, I interned at Celeb Buzz, which was a celebrity news entertainment writing place, kind of like E! Online or Us Weekly Online. And funny enough, I think I got that one through a Sacred Heart alumni worked there full time. So she sent out an email to admissions being like, we're looking for interns. So when the email went out to everyone on campus being like, Celeb Buzz is hiring interns, you bet your ass I was applying to that email, following up on top of it, get me in, put me in, coach. And then here's where I got to write like a reporter, like a celebrity news reporter, writing about celebrities, the Kardashians. I remember writing about like Michael Phelps at the time, like all of these people. And again, strengthened my writing even further, met friends who, again, still industry friends to this day. From there, I had a few online internships where I would just like help people here and there. The summer that I was interning at Elle, the girl that was my manager, her friend needed an intern at a celebrity PR agency. So I started interning with her 2 days a week, and she worked with Julia Roberts. Then my marketing professor had a speaker come in, and I met her, and then I started interning for her, and she represented Pauly D at the time and 50 Cent and all of these big celebrities. So now I found myself in this celebrity PR space. I had always loved pop culture. Originally, being a fashion marketing minor, I thought I wanted to do celebrity styling. It was at Elle magazine where I realized I don't want to do celebrity styling. I can't keep up with these people. I love it. They love it more. I'm 14, 15, 16, however old I am. No, 16. And this girl next to me is saying Miu Miu and Balenciaga and Givenchy. And I was like, what's that? Never heard of it. Like, I like Forever 21. You know, I liked style and fashion. I was not a diehard like some of these New York City girlies. Quickly, I pivoted from celebrity styling to celebrity PR because I liked the writing aspect and I liked the pop culture aspect. And I had a few more internships here and there. And then I started applying to jobs. And I knew it's not like finance when you're working in PR where you could line up a job 6 months before you graduate. I knew I had to work my ass off if I wanted a job. So what I did was apply, go into the city from Connecticut, from college for interviews. I got an interview at a celebrity PR firm. I got an interview. I got the job. I graduated on Friday. I started work on Monday in the city. I was one of my only friends to have a job straight out of college that wasn't in one of those career spaces that you're basically guaranteed a job in advance. I was really proud of that, but I was only making $28,000 a year. Let that sink in. $28,000 a year living in New York City. I didn't have to live in New York City. I could have lived home and I could have saved. But if you're catching on to anything at all, it's that I'm a risk taker. So I said, you know what? I'm going to live in New York and I'm going to make it happen. It was dicey. It was really dicey. I kind of just figured a job is better than no job. I'm making money. It's better than sitting home for the summer taking off, so I'm going to make money. It was a struggle. I was treated like absolute crap. My bosses were borderline emotionally abusive. Not borderline, they were. It was crazy. But I was working on cool things. My first week on the job, I worked a Brad Pitt event for the movie World War Z. Then the Super Bowl was in New York that year, and we were running the press lines for all of the big events, the Playboy party, the Maxim party, the after party at Bounce Sporting Club. We did the press line for the MTV VMAs. We did the Us Weekly, New York's Most Stylish New Yorker event, whatever it's called. I was rubbing elbows with anyone and everyone, balling on a budget. It looked cool on social media, but behind the scenes, I was working 12-hour days, fetching my boss wine and not making money. So it was like one of those things, you know, total devil wears Prada moment. From there, I think I spent about 10 months there and I was like, I need to get out of this hellhole. So I went to another small entertainment agency where I was given a title raise, kind of like I went from assistant to junior associate, and I think I was making $10,000 more. And then a week on that job, my boss emailed me and was like, drop associate or drop assistant in your bio. I want you to be a junior account executive. And I was like, okay. So there I was operating at a very high level, given tons of responsibility, probably 24, 25 at this point. Someone saw my worth. It was really great. My old boss, Tammy, she still works in PR. She saw my worth and she was letting me, this 25-year-old, run point on major pieces of business. I was the running point on Nicki Minaj's Moscato wine brand at the time. I was helping when celebrity clients would come to town, sitting in on meetings with major rappers like Pusha T, Future, DJ Khaled, NBA star Russell Westbrook, accompanying Odell Beckham Jr. to Fashion Week. Like, I was 25 with all the responsibility in the world, just like having someone trust me and value me and be like, you're a really great asset to this team. I decided to ultimately leave there, I think after a year and a half, because again, I just was not making enough money for New York City, and I got a different job and they countered to match what I was making at my other firm. And I just was like, you know what? No, I'm going to move on. And I moved into consumer PR, and it was there. I was working in consumer PR. I had made the switch. I was like working with celebrities. It's fun. It looks amazing on social media. I'm hanging out with all these people. I'm living the New York dream that you see in the shows, but I have no personal life. I am hardly making money. I can't get savings to save my life because I'm just like so overworked and so busy and so tired. So I was like, something's got to get. I switched. I think I made a $10,000 to $15,000 jump. That's the trend with switching jobs so much. People say, don't switch jobs. Let me tell you, I don't believe in that, okay? If someone is willing to hire you and they don't care that you've switched jobs a lot, why should you care? They're willing to hire you. I've never understood that. I had in my 5 years working PR, I think 4 jobs. And each time my salary jumped $15,000 to $10,000, $12,000, whatever it may be. And that was the only way in New York City to make money, was to jump around. What, you don't get rewarded for staying in a company. What, they give you a 7% raise? That makes no sense. What companies should do is really reward their best employees so then those people stay. But what happens is that employee doesn't feel deserved, so they leave, and then they bring in someone new who they have to pay $15,000 more a year. So they end up paying that much money anyway to hire someone new instead of just rewarding the employee that was loyal to them. It's a whole thing. But that's why I was switching around so much at that point. So I went into consumer PR. I was feeling high on life. Here I am running interviews, running the show, putting together amazing events, like really being like, I don't know, a New York City young publicist, feeling like I was killing it. And boy, was I humbled quickly. I was humbled really quickly. I had a boss who completely micromanaged me. I was all of a sudden working on huge Fortune 500 companies in consumer PR, deodorant brands, baby brands. They had a lot of red tape. They were way more corporate than anything I'd ever worked on. In my past jobs, it would be like, we are going to throw an event on a $5,000 budget, but it's going to look like a $100,000 event. At my new job, it was like, we have a $3 million budget and we have to spend it all. So just do whatever you want with the money. I was like, wait, what? We're paying that much money when we can get this for free? I was used to being scrappy. And here I was being like this like corporate talking head. And I was like, I don't like this, but I'm making more money and I have a work-life balance. So like, I guess let's just try. And it was the time when I started working in consumer PR where I started doubting my intelligence once again, because I went from running things to being the bottom once again. I was being so crazily micromanaged to the point where my boss did not let me send an email without her reading it first. And she would change such nuanced things. Like I would say, hey, how are you? She would change it to, hi, how are you doing today? Like things that did not matter. And I went from, again, running accounts to not being able to send an email. It was the most demoralizing experience. Like it really shattered my confidence. I remember getting called in with my boss one day of them being like, if you don't fix this, like this isn't going to work. So now I have this like being threatened to be fired, like laying over my head where I'm like, I don't even know. I'm good at my job. Like what is happening here? Eventually I just had to have that dreaded conversation with my direct boss where I was like, you need to lay off, you know? And that's the one thing I will always advocate for, people speaking up with them for themselves, because once we had that conversation, things changed. She was kind of like, I had a boss that was hard on me and it made me better. So that's what I'm doing to you. Whereas I was like, the harder you are on me, the more mistakes I'm making because I feel uncomfortable. And so she heard me, I heard her. She eased up a little bit. I stopped being a risk, I guess. Stayed there, I think a year and a half. And then I moved on again to another consumer PR company. At this point, I was used to working on big brands. So I had refined the way I worked. I was better with bigger budgets. And I went to work on a deodorant brand, one of the biggest ones in the world. And funny enough, one day an email goes out saying, we are pitching new business for X client. Has anyone ever worked on something similar? It was my old client from the previous job. They were shopping around for a new PR agency. I emailed, I said, I don't know if this is like a non-compete issue, but yeah, that was my direct client. The one that I wasn't allowed to email. Guess what? This new place, they didn't know I wasn't allowed to email them. They said, great, you're running point. So guess what I did? I sat in on the pitch. I told them everything they needed to know. I said, this is what they're focusing on. This is what they care about. I helped the entire team of higher ups, executives, people craft the pitch for the client. And we ultimately won the business. I got to present in the room with the people from this huge worldwide, very known company. And after we were awarded the business, I was put as the account lead and I was managing the calls every week and managing the agenda and doing all of the things that just 6 months prior, my boss didn't think I was capable of doing. That's the difference between a good team and a bad team, let me just tell you. Just goes to show. So I missed a little bit of a chapter when I was at my first consumer PR job, not the one I'm currently at, the one previously, is when I decided I'm relaunching my blog. I had always done blogs in college. I wrote for College Fashionista. I had a blog about how to land an internship. My senior year project was a blog. Like I just always had them, but It wasn't something I was monetizing. It wasn't something that was a thing really then. And then it was at my third job where I started seeing that we were paying people to do things. And I was like, why did I stop this? Also, now that I'm not working with celebrities, my job is 0% fulfilling. It just is a paycheck. It's a better paycheck, but now I don't have a hobby. So I started a blog. I remember sitting with my work friends who are still my best friends today, Lisa and Jill, you know them. And I was like, hey guys, I'm starting a blog tonight. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, it's going to be called Publicity. I bought the domain. They're like, okay, pop off. Next day, I'd bring my camera to work. Hey guys, at lunch, will you take a picture of my outfit? Sure. They saw me literally from nothing to build something. And I worked in PR, and for 2 years, I just built and built and built, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't know my aesthetic, and things switched and changed, and more opportunities started flowing in, and I would wake up at 7 a.m. before work to shoot content from 7 to 8, then from 8 to 9, I would get ready and go to work, and I just had 2 jobs for 2 years, and eventually I started making real money on Instagram at the time. And that is where I was like, okay, the second I have savings, I'm quitting this job in PR and I'm taking a chance on myself. I remember I saved $20,000, which was astonishing. It's still a big savings for people. It was astonishing at the time because I came from a $28,000 a year salary in New York City where I could hardly afford my rent to now I had savings because of this dual income that I was making. And keep in mind, I think I made like $50K that year. I was spending a lot because I'm like, money finally. Like I was going to Paris, I should have saved more, but you live and you learn. So I saved $20,000. I quit PR. My parents almost had a heart attack. I said, you have to trust me. I am going for it. And I just hit the ground running. I really hit the ground running. And that same year, I believe, launched my podcast, the Publicity Podcast. I started selling merch. I was very, not ahead of the curve because people were doing this, but it wasn't like it was now. There were not many. And from there, I did that for a few years. I remember making like my first 100K doing that. And then it was just up from there. And then what happened was I was making money via social media, via podcasts, via merch, all of these things. And then 2020 rolled around and I was like, what's going to happen to my career? Like the world is shutting down. Actually, funny enough, marketing budgets kind of amped up because all brands could do was promote things online. They couldn't really do like in-store advertising or anything. Stores were closed. So that year I was fine actually financially, but it was during that time where I had my podcast for like 2 years at that point, and I was like, I'm done kind of talking about celebrities. Like, I want to talk about real life things that are going on in my life, which I talk about in my health journey episode, where I just talk about like going through things with like my mental health and weight gain and whatever. And it just kind of shifted my mindset to be like, I don't care about these celebrities. Like, I want to talk about real life stuff. And that is where my pitching came in handy once again. At the time, Call Her Daddy was like huge on Barstool, and the details of their deal was out on the internet. I knew how much money these people made. I knew how much money the company had to give. And the big podcasts at the time were Chicks in the Office and Call Her Daddy. And Chicks in the Office was pop culture, but since I was pivoting away from that, I'm like, okay, I could pitch something new. And Call Her Daddy was all about, like, at the time, sex and a blonde girl. It was, Sophia had left at this time. It was just Alex still being kind of raunchy, still just being like a skinny white girl. And I was like, hey, I'm turning 30. I just gained a lot of weight. I'm uncomfortable. I'm getting ghosted. I'm trying to date someone. My biological clock is ticking. Like, you need someone like me. So what did I do? I remember having this thought. I was sitting on my couch, and as my ideas come to me, you'll come to learn, they kind of just come to me on a whim one day, and then I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it. That's just how things ideas just fall into my lap. And I remember sitting on the couch in COVID, and I was just like, I'm going to pitch my concept to Dave Portnoy. And I remember just not even putting much thought into it, but I knew intuitively in my gut, I'm like, he's going to answer this DM. I DM'd him. People still DM me now with like the opening that I DM'd him, which was just like saying, hear me out, ... And then I carried on because I know that in Instagram DMs, you're only going to see the first few lines, not the end. So I said, hear me out. And then I called out a flaw in his business model. And I said, you do not have someone like me on your network. I'm curvy. I'm currently gaining following on TikTok for a mid-sized fashion video. I had gained like 250,000 followers overnight for an 8-second mid-sized fashion video. I'm struggling with dating. I'm turning 30. I was like, you have Alex Cooper. It's amazing. She dates athletes. She gets flown around on private planes. I'm at home getting ghosted, and you need someone like me. And I think the best thing you could do to someone who runs a business is point out nicely a flaw in their business model, because there was a gap for him to make money right there. And I still absolutely believe that. My show didn't work out there, and we'll get into it, but I still think my instincts were spot on. And I still actually believe they're missing that, but I'll tell you why it didn't work in a second. And he's a smart guy, so he heard me, and I went in, for an interview with him and the CEO at the time. And we started drawing up a contract. And you better believe, I mean, it's so funny because talking to the other people I know that worked there, they were just happy. They were just felt lucky to get offered a contract that they didn't even read it. I had lawyers. I had this, I had that. I negotiated terms and conditions. I was making great money. I was like, I'm a business person. Like, I'm not coming into this willy-nilly. And here's the thing. I do not regret going there. It was a fantastic decision because a lot of you have found me through that opportunity. The issue is, there's a few. 1, integrity. 2, my willingness to give them everything. And 3, I think management at the time. There was a few things. I never candidly kind of speak about this. I think had I gone in there and been controversial and owned, like, yeah, like I'm the chubby girl, I think I would have gotten a lot of hate, but I would have gotten more views. What happened to me was the second I went in there, I was like, I don't want men following me because they're not going to buy my merch. They're not going to do anything. I've seen other girls go on their network and just get completely reamed by the male audiences, and I didn't want that. So I took a slow and steady approach. I rather have a small audience of women than a big audience of men and haters. I do not disagree with my approach. I believe that I went in there doing things the way that was in alignment with my intuition. But during that time, I also did have a lot of conflict that I would talk about in therapy, being like, I'm at this place that has a reputation for hitting women, and here I am. And then where I always landed in my gut was like, yeah, but I'm changing that. I'm the one that's trying to change that. So like, this is why I'm there. But then when push came to shove, I don't think I fully immersed myself. I don't think I really fit into the comedy culture. A lot of sarcasm kind of goes over my head. I just don't think it was the right fit. I would have been interested. It's an interesting conversation to have with him, but I would have been interested to see how my show would have done if Dave was the CEO at the time. I think things would have been different, if I'm being honest. I think that I was maybe not in contact with him enough, and I should have been. And I think there's a lot of learnings now. I would approach it like a business because they said to me, you have to be a self-starter. And I said, sure. So what I would do is I would email the CEO emails of, hey, my TikTok, my podcast TikTok, it grew 30% this week. Hey, I sold out a show of 300 people. I did this. I did that. I'm focusing on female growth. Guess what? My audience is 90% female. I've grown my Instagram following for the podcast page from 0 to 30K. I've done this. I've done that. I was like, I would send these updates because otherwise no one was checking in with me. I didn't have a boss. And I'm like, I want them to know what I'm bringing to the table. They would go unanswered. And I knew in my gut that for me was a stepping stone, not a forever career thing. Because also at that time, when I had started working there, I was just starting to blow up on TikTok in terms of following. And then my contract at that time did not allow me to do outside partnerships outside of my contract with them. And I knew I was leaving, honestly, hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table. Truly, at least. And I don't regret it. I think that it came at such a great time in my life. It came during COVID. It got me out of the house, which I needed for my mental health. And I think it ended when it was supposed to. Truly. And they let me go 6 months early. They let me out of my contract. They were kind of like, not they, one person was kind of like, don't tell people like we let you go, like just say it was mutual. So what do? I get on my podcast. I'm like, yeah, it was mutual. Then they put out something on social media being like, we were letting people go this week. And I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding. Now I look like a liar. I also wanted out of my contract. Like I was like actively unhappy. I was happy. I remember I got fired, and I remember calling my dad and I'm like, hey, yeah, so I got fired because I knew. And he's like, are you sad? I was like, no, I feel amazing. I feel like a weight's been lifted. Guess what I did that day? Went back into publicist mode. I reached out to every single manager that had been reaching out to me for months that I wasn't allowed to work with. I reached out to every single brand that wouldn't work with me because I was associated with them. I signed a mid-size, middle six-figure deal. I signed multiple month-long contract. I quadrupled, if not tripled, my salary. I made things happen. I went back into publicist mode. I got back to it. I kept the podcast for a little. I relocated my entire life to LA, and it's in LA then that I launched the tea business. And that was something that I had thought about, that I thought if I was successful there, I could maybe do with them. I'm so happy it worked out in my timing and it didn't work out there. I'm so happy that I was able to launch the tea business and see this idea in my car coming to me at a light to holding a physical product in my hands. And I think maybe what I'll do in a second part career series is talk more more about the tea business and how I got there and what that looks like and how I continue to do that to this day. But this is my career lore. This is how I got to where I am today. I am 34 years old. I've switched jobs so much. My life has taken so many turns. There's so many different paths and avenues and things that you could take. If people tell you that you have to do one thing, I guess my biggest takeaway that I want you to leave here with is the fact that you literally could do anything. There is not one linear way to become successful. You do not have to follow social norms. You could step outside of the box and make things happen for yourself and take chances. And you have to hustle. That may mean working 2 jobs at once, but you could do it and you will do it. And it is completely possible. And we will dig more into that in part 2. So if you are new here, if you just enjoy this content, please consider subscribing, liking, leaving a review, all of those things, because I am being more consistent on YouTube and I just want to connect with you guys. So thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.